My brother found the storage key in the inside pocket of Carol's green winter coat. He held it up between two fingers. "What's this?" I was standing on the other side of our bedroom with a cardboard box marked "Donate" at my feet. 8 months after my wife died, I had finally agreed to let Ron help me clear part of her closet. Not all of it. I had rules. Shoes she had not worn in years could go. Ordinary sweaters could go. The blue robe stayed, so did the green coat. At least that had been the plan. The key was brass, ordinary enough, with a red plastic tag wired through the top. On one side, somebody had written 3117. On the other, WCS Ron turned it over. Storage? I don't know. You don't have a storage unit? No. Carol? Not that I knew. My older brother looked at me. He knew better than to say the next sentence. After 47 years of marriage, apparently there were things you did not know. Instead, he reached back into the coat pocket. His hand came out with a folded piece of paper, a receipt. Westchester Self-Storage, Unit 317, monthly rent $126. The receipt was dated February 3rd, 9 days before Carol died. At the top was the renter's name, Nathan Mercer, my son. For several seconds, I did nothing. Ron read over my shoulder. "That your Nathan?" "I only have one." Our son was 43 years old. He lived 20 minutes away in Mason with his wife, Dana, and their 16-year-old daughter, Sophie. Nathan had owned a small custom cabinet and furniture business for almost 12 years. If he rented a storage unit, there were 100 reasonable explanations. Tools, lumber, finished cabinets waiting for installation, old business records. The unreasonable part was why my dying wife had the key in her coat. I checked the receipt again. It was not a random piece of paper Carol might have picked up from our kitchen counter. Near the bottom, in her handwriting, she had written 2/2/15, bring blue box. I knew Carol's handwriting. Small block letters, a strange habit of crossing her sevens because she said American sevens were lazy and should make more effort. This was hers. "What blue box?" Ron asked. "I don't know." He looked toward the closet. "You want me to keep looking?" "No." That came out faster than I intended. Ron raised both hands. "All right." I folded the receipt along the crease Carol had made and put it beside the key on the dresser. The donation project was over. Ron knew it too. He sat in the bedroom chair. "Call Nathan." "I will." "You're thinking first." "Yes." That generally worries people. "I'm 70. 69. Close enough. You become 70 in October. I appreciate the audit." He smiled. I did not. Before I retired, I had spent 35 years in commercial property insurance. Mostly claims, fire, water damage, the occasional warehouse roof that collapsed because somebody thought snow load was a suggestion. I learned one habit that followed me into retirement. Do not build a story before you have enough facts. People do it naturally. They see a burned outlet and decide electrical fire, a broken window and decide burglary, a puddle under a sprinkler head and decide the sprinkler failed first. Sometimes they are right. Sometimes the broken window was made by firefighters going in. The key told me Carol had access to Nathan's storage unit. It did not tell me why. I looked at the date again. February 3rd. Carol had been very sick by then. Pancreatic cancer does not care much about people's plans. By February, she was sleeping 12 or 13 hours a day, eating little, walking slowly. She still dressed herself, still insisted on paying the electric bill because she did not trust me to notice when the budget plan changed. Still corrected Jeopardy contestants from the couch with enough confidence to suggest the producers should have hired her instead. But she was not driving. I drove her almost everywhere. Almost. On Tuesdays, our daughter Julie usually took Carol to oncology appointments so I could grocery shop, refill prescriptions, or simply spend 2 hours somewhere that did not smell like antiseptic. February 3rd had been a Tuesday. I checked my phone calendar. Carol had no oncology appointment that afternoon. There was an entry at 11, Julie taking mom, lunch, nothing at 2:15, no storage unit, no blue box. Ron watched me. What? She couldn't have driven there. Maybe Nathan picked her up. Maybe. Or Julie. Maybe. You could keep saying maybe until dinner. I know. So I called Nathan. He answered after 4 rings. "Hey, Dad. You busy?" "At the shop." Nathan still called it the shop, even though his business had become more office and installation work than actual woodworking over the past year. I found something of your mother's. Silence, not unusual by itself. Nathan struggled with any sentence that included his mother in the past tense. What? A key. Another pause. What kind of key? That was more interesting. Storage. Silence again. This one was different. I looked at Ron. He heard it too. Finally, Nathan said, "Where did you find it?" "Her green coat," he breathed out. Not shock, recognition. "You mean the Westchester key, so you know what it is?" "Yes." "Unit 317. "Yes." "And the unit is rented in your name?" "Yes." There was no point asking questions I already knew. I moved to the one that mattered. "Why did your mother have the key?" Nathan did not answer. "Nathan?" "She kept some things there." "What things?" "Dad." "What things?" His voice lowered. "Mom's." I looked around the bedroom, her closet, her jewelry box still on the dresser, boxes of photographs stacked beneath the window. "What things of Carol's are in a storage unit?" "Stuff she wanted put away." "From me?" "No." "Then why didn't I know about it?" Nathan exhaled. "This is not a phone conversation. That is usually what people say when the phone conversation has reached the useful part." Ron looked at the floor to hide a smile. Nathan did not laugh. "Can you come by tonight?" he asked. "My house?" "Yes." "Bring what?" "What do you mean?" "The unit papers, whatever you have." Another pause. "I'll come at 7. He started to hang up. "Nathan?" "Yeah?" "Can I open Unit 317 with this key?" Silence. Then, "Dad, don't go there." That was the first thing he said that made me genuinely uneasy. "Why?" "Just wait until I come over." "That is not an answer." "I know." "Is there something in that unit that belongs to me?" His breathing changed. "I don't know how you want me to answer that." "Accurately?" "Mom put it there." That did not answer my question either. "Please." My son was not a man who said please often, not because he was rude, because he preferred sentences that sounded like instructions. He got that from me. 7, I said. Then I ended the call. Ron stared at the key. "Well?" "That was informative." "Not in the comforting direction?" "No." I unfolded the receipt again. Westchester Self-Storage was about 11 miles from my house in Blue Ash. I had driven past it hundreds of times. 3 beige buildings behind a black metal gate near an industrial park. Nothing mysterious. Hundreds of units rented by people who had accumulated more property than square footage. I entered the address in my phone. Open until 6. Gate access until 9. "Don't," Ron said. I looked at him. "You're going to tell me not to go?" "I'm going to tell you if Nathan asked you to wait until 7, maybe wait until 7. You were the one who said call him. I have grown. In 12 minutes. Remarkable at my age." I put the phone down. He was right. A key was not proof I had the right to enter a unit rented to someone else, even if Carol had used it, even if some of the property inside might be mine. I spent too many years dealing with ownership disputes to pretend possession of a key was ownership of everything behind the lock. So, I did not drive to Westchester. I did something less dramatic. I checked the house, not searching, inventorying. There is a difference, though Carol would have argued that only insurance men believe that. I started in our bedroom. Her jewelry box was there. Wedding ring was not, because I had it in my desk. Pearl earrings. Gold bracelet Julie gave her on her 60th birthday. Her mother's silver compact, all present. In the hall closet, I checked the cedar chest where Carol kept old family linens. Still there. Downstairs, the dining room cabinet held the china. Silver flatware, serving pieces. Nothing obvious missing. Then I went into my office. The bottom shelf contained 3 photo albums. It should have contained 4. I knew because Carol labeled them by decade. 1977, 1989, 1990, 1999, 2000, 2009, 2010. The first one was gone. I knelt. Maybe it had been moved. I checked the desk, cabinet, bookshelf, nothing. Ron stood in the doorway. "Missing something?" "1 album." "That all?" "So far." Then I remembered the blue box. Carol owned several blue boxes. Shoe boxes, gift boxes, one old metal recipe box that was technically turquoise and would have caused an argument if I called it blue. But there was one specific box in our bedroom closet. A blue archival box, about 18 inches long. Inside were letters my father wrote my mother while stationed in Germany in the early 1960s, plus military photographs, his discharge papers, and an old Omega watch he gave me shortly before he died. I had not opened the box since Carol reorganized the closet the previous summer. I went upstairs. The shelf was empty. Not mostly empty, not messy enough that I could have overlooked it. Empty. Ron came up behind me. What was there? The blue box? The one on her receipt? I don't know, but I did. Or at least I had my first reasonable suspicion. I went back to the dresser and looked at Carol's note. 2/2/15. Bring blue box. My father's things had been in our house for decades. They had no connection to Nathan's cabinet business. No reason to be stored 11 miles away in a unit under my son's name. I called Julie. She answered from work. Dad? Did you take your mother anywhere on February 3rd? A pause. That is specific. Do you remember? February? 9 days before she died. Her voice changed. Oh. I heard keyboard tapping. I'd have to check. Please. More tapping. Then, I took her to lunch. Where? Panera near Kenwood. And after? Another pause. I dropped her somewhere. My grip tightened on the phone. Where? I don't remember exactly. Try. Dad, what's going on? Julie, she breathed out. Westchester. I looked at Ron. Storage? Silence. Then my daughter said, You found the key. Not a question. She knew. And that changed the mystery again. Carol had not hidden Unit 317 with Nathan alone. Julie knew too. My wife had involved both of our children in something she had kept from me until 9 days before she died. What is in that unit? Julie did not answer immediately. Then she said very carefully, You need to let Nathan explain. I looked at the empty shelf where my father's blue box had been. No. Dad. I have spent 47 years being married to the woman who put that key in her pocket. Julie became quiet. I'm going to hear what Nathan says. Good. But I'm also going to find out what Carol thought she was doing. My daughter whispered, Those are not necessarily the same thing. That sentence stayed with me after we hung up. At 7, my son was coming to explain why my late wife had access to a storage unit rented in his name. By then I knew at least one thing from my own house had probably gone into it. Something that did not belong to Nathan. Something Carol knew mattered to me, and both of my children had known enough about Unit 317 to recognize the key before I finished explaining where I found it. Whatever was behind that lock, the secrecy had not begun after Carol died. It had been built around me while she was still alive. At 7, Nathan arrived carrying a manila folder, and the expression he used when he expected a conversation to cost him something. Ron had gone home an hour earlier. I had considered asking him to stay, then decided against it. Whatever Unit 317 was, Nathan deserved one chance to explain it without an audience. He came through the kitchen carrying no coat, no briefcase, just the folder. You eat? Yes. That was a lie. I had made a sandwich at 5:30 and left half of it on the plate. Nathan looked toward the dining room. Here? Kitchen's fine. Carol had preferred difficult conversations at the kitchen table. She said nobody could behave too dramatically with a refrigerator humming 6 feet away. Nathan sat where she used to sit. I noticed that and disliked myself for noticing it. He slid the folder toward me. That's the rental agreement. I opened it. Westchester Self-Storage, Unit 317, 10 by 15, renter, Nathan Mercer. Original lease date, May 18th of the previous year, 9 months before Carol died. Why did you rent it? Business overflow? What kind? Mostly finished pieces waiting on installs. Some tools, records. Still? Some. I turned to the page. Automatic payment from Nathan's business checking account. Monthly rent had started at $112, later increased to $126. Nothing unusual. Your mother paid any of this? No. Ever? No. Then how did she get a key? Nathan leaned back. I gave her one. When? December. That caught me. December? About 2 months before she died. Why? She wanted to store some things. I waited. He looked at the table. Dad, Mom knew you weren't ready to go through the house. She was still alive. I know. So what exactly was I supposed to be ready for? Nathan rubbed his face. She knew what was happening. That sentence still had a way of making the room smaller. Carol had never asked us to pretend she was recovering. She knew. We knew. But knowing someone is dying does not mean you spend every breakfast discussing the disposition of their shoes. What did she put there? Family stuff. Defined family stuff. Pictures, papers, some boxes. My father's box? Yes. The album? Yes. What else? I don't know everything. You had the unit. I wasn't there every time she used it. Julie was. Sometimes. I looked at him. Why didn't anyone tell me? Nathan's answer came too quickly. Because Mom asked us not to. That was probably true. It was also too easy. Why? She said you'd stop her. From putting my father's things in your storage unit? She didn't think of it that way. How did she think of it? Nathan looked tired. She thought she was organizing what mattered before she was gone. I stared at him. That sounded like Carol. It almost fit. The last 4 months of her life had been full of small acts that I recognized only afterward as preparation. She wrote passwords in a notebook and labeled the cover so I could find it. She made Julie promise to take the Christmas dishes. She told Nathan where the furnace warranty was. She renewed my library card because she was certain I would forget and then complain about the county. She taped instructions inside the freezer explaining which container was chili and which was spaghetti sauce, because, in her words, you'll eat either one over noodles and act like that's normal. Carol prepared quietly. Maybe Unit 317 was one more thing. A place to sort pieces of our life without making me watch. That explanation hurt. It did not frighten me. For several minutes I let myself believe it. Then I asked, "Why did you tell me not to go there?" Nathan's mouth tightened. Because you were upset. Not a reason. And because there are things in there that aren't yours. Business property? Yes. What else? He did not answer. Nathan? Mom put boxes aside for Julie and me. Fine. She also put some things aside for Sophie. Fine. I didn't want you walking in, seeing something out of context, and assuming what? He stopped. That was the problem with using the word assuming. Eventually somebody asks what conclusion you were trying to prevent. Nathan looked at the rental agreement. She was making decisions. About her property? Yes. And mine? His jaw moved. Some of the stuff was both of yours. That is not the same answer. I know. I folded my hands. Did your mother give anything away that belonged to me? No. Sell anything? No. Promise anything? No. Then what am I supposed to misunderstand? Nathan stood and walked to the sink. For a moment, he stared through the window into the dark backyard. When he turned around, he looked less defensive, more embarrassed. Do you remember when my shop lost the Heritage Millwork job? I did. That had been 14 months earlier. Heritage Millwork was a regional home builder that ordered custom built-ins and kitchen packages from Nathan. Then the builder ran into financing trouble and stopped paying vendors. Nathan was left holding roughly $61,000 in unpaid invoices, plus materials he had already purchased. He survived it. At least that was what I believed. You told me you worked out a payment plan with suppliers. I did. You cut 2 employees. 1. You said the business recovered. It mostly did. Mostly. Insurance claims taught me to dislike mostly. What does that have to do with your mother? Nathan leaned against the counter. She knew I was struggling. So did I. No, his answer was immediate. You knew the business had a bad year. That's what struggling means. Not the way it was. I waited. Nathan came back to the table. I was behind on sales tax. How far? 3/4? I stared at him. Ohio businesses collect sales tax for the state. It is not money you casually borrow from because a customer pays late. How much? About $28,000 at the worst point. Nathan, I fixed it. With what? Payment plan, other jobs. Did your mother give you money? No. That answer came fast, too. I filed it away. Did I? He looked confused. No. Then why are we talking about this? Because Mom found out. How? She saw some mail at the shop. When was Carol at your shop? Last summer. I remembered. She had gone to help Sophie refinish a small desk. Carol could turn a 2-hour project into an entire Saturday if sanding was involved. She saw a certified letter. Yes. And? She asked questions. That sounded even more like her. What did you tell her? Eventually, everything. Everything being taxes, supplier balances, credit cards. How much debt? Nathan looked away. Dad, how much? Business and personal together? Yes. At the worst point, around 96. $96,000. That was not a slow month. That was a hole. What did Carol do? She got angry. I almost smiled. Good. She was scared. Also good. She thought I was going to lose the business. Were you? I don't know. You knew then? Yes. Were you? He nodded once. Maybe. That changed the conversation. Not the storage unit, the family underneath it. Nathan and I had always had a difficult arrangement around money. Not bad. Difficult. When he started his cabinet business, I loaned him $15,000. I did not hand it over. I wrote a note. Interest at 2%, monthly payment schedule. Carol said I made our son feel like a borrower. I said he was a borrower. Nathan paid every dollar back 17 months early. At the time, I considered that proof my approach had worked. Years later, Carol told me Nathan considered it proof he should never ask me for help again. I had called that pride. Maybe it was. Maybe mine too. Why didn't he tell you? Carol once asked me, after Nathan spent 3 days fixing our deck without accepting payment. If he needs something, he knows my number. That's not what I asked. We left the conversation there. Carol had a talent for leaving a sentence unfinished until I noticed it years later. Nathan sat across from me now, 43 years old, telling me he had nearly lost the company and told his dying mother instead of me. I could have made that about disrespect. I nearly did. Instead, I asked, what did she do after she found out? She helped me make a list. Of debts? Everything. Did she pay anything? No. Again, fast. What did she do? She made me start selling things I didn't need. Business equipment? Some. Personal? He hesitated. Some. The key on the table suddenly looked different. Unit 317. He nodded. I moved things there so we could sort what was worth selling and what I still needed for work. We? Mom and me. Carol was helping liquidate your property. That sounds worse than it was. It sounds exactly like what you described. She was helping me get control. Then why did she start putting our things there? Nathan's face closed again. That was the contradiction. If the unit had been Carol's quiet place to organize family keepsakes, his debt story was background. If it had been a staging area for assets Nathan might sell, moving my father's Omega watch into it was something else. Did your mother ever intend for anything from our house to be sold? No? You're sure? Yes. Then why mix it with things you were selling? She didn't. You just told me the same unit was used for both. Different sides. I stared at him. He became frustrated. It was organized, Dad. So was every warehouse I ever inspected. Fire still crossed aisles. That's not what I mean. What do you mean? Mom had a locked cabinet inside. That was new. A cabinet. Yes. She bought one of those steel storage cabinets. Her boxes went inside it. Who had the key? She did. Not you? No. Julie? I don't think so. So there's a locked cabinet inside a storage unit rented in your name, and your mother held the only key. Yes. Where is that key? Nathan looked at the brass key from Carol's coat. That isn't it. I knew. Unit key. Red tag. The cabinet key was somewhere else, if it still existed. I stood. Tomorrow we go to the unit. Nathan nodded. What time? 9. The facility opens at 6. I have a job site first. 9. He gathered the papers. Before he reached that door, I asked, when did your mother first put something in that cabinet? December. I watched him. You're sure? Yes. He left at 8:20. At 8:34, Julie called me. Not Nathan. Julie. I talked to him, she said. I assumed you would. Dad, he's telling you most of it. Most. There was that word again. Did Carol start using Unit 317 in December? Silence. Julie. No. When? September. 3 months earlier than Nathan had just told me. What did she put there? I don't know the first time. You drove her. Yes. What did she carry in? Julie took a breath. A grocery bag. What was in it? I didn't look. And the second time? Another pause. That was different. How? She made me help her move a box. What box? Not the blue one. Then what? Julie lowered her voice. A banker's box from Nathan's shop. What was in it? I never opened it. Did Nathan know she took it? No. I stood alone in the kitchen. The explanation Nathan had given me was that Carol discovered his debt, helped him organize what to sell, then began using part of Unit 317 for family keepsakes in December. Julie had just moved Carol's first visit back to September, and on one of those early visits, my wife had carried a box of Nathan's business records into his own storage unit without telling him. Why? I asked. Julie was quiet so long, I thought the call had dropped. Then she said, because Mom had stopped believing everything Nathan told her about the money. That was the first contradiction I could not explain away as grief, organization, or a dying woman preparing her family for life without her. Carol had not only been helping our son. At some point, she had started checking him. That was what stayed with me the next morning when I pulled into Westchester Self-Storage at 8:53. Nathan arrived 6 minutes later in his work truck. He parked beside me, got out, and looked at the facility office. You're early. So are you. I said 9. I know how clocks work. He did not answer. The gate opened after he entered his code. I followed his truck between 2 beige buildings until we reached the 3rd row. Unit 317 was near the end. Nathan unlocked the roll-up door with a round brass padlock. The key Carol had carried fitted. I knew because he let me try. That should not have mattered. It did. For 8 months, the last places Carol had been existed only in other people's memories. Now I was standing somewhere she had deliberately gone without me. Nathan rolled the door up. The unit smelled like plywood, machine oil, and cold concrete. It was larger than I expected, 10 feet wide, 15 deep. The left side held business equipment, a small compressor, 2 portable saw stands, clamps in plastic tubs, 3 boxes of cabinet hardware, a stack of unfinished maple drawer fronts. Near the back were 2 wrapped bathroom vanities with customer names written on masking tape. The right side was less organized. A desk chair, 2 lamps, shelving, several banker's boxes, an old shop vacuum. And against the back wall, exactly as Nathan had described, stood a gray steel cabinet about 6 feet tall. A small black padlock hung through its handles. That hers? I asked. Yes. You bought it? She did. When? I don't remember. You said December. Nathan looked at me. I said she started putting family things here in December. That wasn't my question. He gave me the look adult sons give fathers when they believe precision is being used as a weapon. I think November. I walked closer. On the cabinet door, Carol had stuck a white mailing label, her handwriting, CM, not shop. That sounded like her too, clear enough that anyone could understand it, possessive enough to discourage curiosity. Where's the key? I told you, I don't have it. You never did? No. Did Julie? Not that I know. I bent to examine the padlock. Cheap laminated steel, the kind I used on our shed 30 years ago. Nathan said, I can cut it. You sure? It's my unit. That cabinet wasn't yours. He looked at the label. No. Then I'd rather not destroy something Carol wanted locked. Dad, she's not coming back for it. I knew what he meant. He knew immediately that he should not have said it. Sorry, I stood. Cut it. Nathan had a cordless grinder in his truck. It took less than a minute. He cut through the shackle, waited for the metal to cool, then dropped the broken lock into his palm. Neither of us reached for the cabinet handles. Finally, he said, You want to? Yes. The left door squeaked. Inside were 6 shelves. The blue archival box sat on the second one. My father's letters, his photographs, his discharge papers. I pulled the box out and opened it. Everything appeared to be there. The envelopes tied with the same cotton ribbon Carol had used for years. The old black and white photographs. The discharge papers in their plastic sleeve. And the Omega watch. I lifted it from the small felt pouch. Same scratched crystal. Same brown leather band my father had replaced badly himself. I had not expected the relief I felt. Nathan watched me. I told you Mom wasn't selling your stuff. You told me a lot of things. I know. I put the watch back. The missing photo album was on the shelf beneath it. Beside that were 2 boxes labeled Julie and Sophie. I did not open them. Those labels answered enough. The bottom shelf held the banker's box Julie had mentioned. Across the lid, Carol had written, "Nathan, business, keep copies." Nathan saw it at the same time I did. I didn't know, but that was there. "You recognize the box?" "Yes." "From the shop?" "Yes." "What was in it?" "Old statements, I think." "You think?" "I didn't make the box." "Julie says Carol took it from your shop." Nathan turned toward me. "Julie told you?" "Last night." His expression changed. Not anger exactly. Concern that conversations were happening without him. Interesting feeling. I lifted the banker's box onto an old folding table. Inside were file folders, supplier statements, credit card bills, Ohio tax correspondence, printed bank transactions, customer contracts. Carol had organized them by month. Not perfectly. She had never been an accountant, but she understood paper. Before we married, she worked 6 years in the billing office of a hospital. Later, after Julie started school, Carol ran the books for a small dental practice 3 days a week. She knew what unpaid invoices looked like. More importantly, she knew what people looked like when they were hoping nobody would compare one month to the next. A yellow legal pad sat on top. I recognized it immediately. Carol kept those pads in a kitchen drawer. The first page contained dates: July 17th, August 4th, August 29th, September 12th. Beside each date were amounts and abbreviations. I turned the page. At the top, she had written, "What Nathan says. Heritage loss started this. Taxes behind because cash went to payroll materials. Below that, need actual total. Then a list. Ohio sales tax, $28,160 Midwest hardwood, $17,030 business visa, $21,114 truck equipment, $9,600 two smaller suppliers, about $8,300 at the bottom. She had totaled everything. 85 Adley 104 bowlers. No, Nathan stood beside me. "You said 96,000. That was later. So this was before things got worse." "Yes." I turned another page. A photocopy of an Ohio Department of Taxation notice had been clipped to it. Past due amount, penalties, instructions for payment. The next sheet was a copy of a cashier's check. I read the purchaser's name, Carol A. Mercer. Payable to the Ohio Treasurer of State. Amount $28,160. 18 date October 3rd. I looked at Nathan. Yesterday he had answered my question 3 times. "Did your mother give you money?" "No." "She paid your tax debt." Nathan nodded. "You said she didn't give you money." "She didn't give it to me?" I stared at him. That is the kind of answer people give when they know what the real question was. His face reddened. "She paid the state directly." "With her money?" "Yes." "How is that meaningfully different?" "She wanted it done that way." "That wasn't what I asked." Nathan put both hands on the edge of the folding table. "She used money from Grandma Lewis." Carol's mother had died 7 years earlier and left each of her 3 children a modest inheritance. Carol received a little over $70,000 after the house was sold. She kept most of it in a separate brokerage account. Not because we separated our finances generally, because I told her it was her mother's money and should remain hers. She used some to take us to Alaska, some to help Julie after her divorce. I had assumed the rest was still invested. How much did she have left? "I don't know." "Did you ask?" "No." "Did she call this a gift?" Nathan hesitated. "No." "A loan?" "Yes." "Written?" "Not really." "What does not really mean?" "She wrote down that I'd repay her." "Where?" "I don't know." I looked back into the banker's box. 3 folders down, I found it. 1 sheet of yellow paper, Carol's handwriting, 10-3, paid Ohio $28,160.18 from Mom's account. Nathan says taxes will be current after this. He will repay as business recovers, no interest. Minimum $500 mo starting January. Below that, do not tell M yet. I need to know whether this saves him or only buys time. Mehomish me. I read it twice. Nathan did not speak. There are lies you hear directly, and there are lies built out of missing conversations. Carol and I had shared a house, a bed, a calendar, tax returns, insurance policies, 47 anniversaries, and the knowledge that she was dying. In October, while I drove her to scans and sat beside her during chemotherapy, she had paid nearly $29,000 to keep our son's business out of deeper trouble. Then she came home and did not tell me. I should have been angry. I was. But the stronger feeling was embarrassment, because I knew why she had written that sentence. Do not tell M yet. Not because I would have taken her money away. I could not. Not because I hated Nathan. I did not. Because I would have asked for every statement before agreeing the business deserved another dollar. Carol knew that. Apparently by October, she had started thinking the same way. I turned the page. Her notes became more detailed. She had compared Nathan's bank statements with the debts he described. One page contained 6 checks written from Mercer Custom Cabinetry to Nathan personally between May and August. Owner draws $2,400, $3,100, $1,800, $3,600, $2,150, $4,000. Total $17,150. Carol had circled it. Beside the total, why draws if sales tax unpaid? Nathan saw where I was looking. Those were household expenses. You paid yourself $17,000 while you weren't remitting collected taxes. I still had a mortgage, and so does half the country. Dana's hours were cut. That explains pressure. It doesn't explain using tax money. I know. Did Carol know? Yes. What did she say? That I was robbing tomorrow to pay today. That was exactly what she would have said. I kept reading. Another page listed customer deposits. 5 jobs, initials, contract amounts, deposits received. Projected installation dates. The combined deposits were a little over $39,000. Beside 2 of them, Carol had written, materials ordered. Beside another, not started as of 9/22, I looked at Nathan. Where did the deposits go? Into the business. That means nothing. Payroll, suppliers, rent, insurance. For those jobs? Not specifically. I stopped. Customer deposits are not always kept in separate trust accounts in a small contracting business. Cash moves. A deposit on one project can buy materials while another invoice is waiting. That alone did not prove fraud, but it told me something about the shape of the problem. Nathan had not simply lost $61,000 when Heritage Millwork stopped paying. He had responded by using incoming money to satisfy older obligations. That can work until work slows. Then every new job begins already owing money to the previous one. How many of these 5 jobs were finished? I asked. Eventually? Yes. 4. And the 5th? He looked toward the wrapped vanities near the wall. Part of it is right there. The masking tape on one vanity read, Parker, Hall Bath. I checked Carol's list. Parker was one of the 5. Deposit received August 11th. Scheduled install October 7th. It was now the following October, 14 months later. Why is their vanity still here? Nathan's jaw tightened. The job canceled. Did you return the deposit? Most of it. How much is most? He did not answer. I looked at the folders again. My first theory had been simple. Nathan got into debt. Carol secretly rescued him. Then she began checking whether he had told her the truth. Standing in Unit 317, I realized that theory was probably correct. It was also incomplete. Carol had not built a file merely to remember what she paid. She had been reconstructing the business, customer by customer, deposit by deposit, promise by promise. And on the last written page in the box, dated January 27th, 2 weeks before her death, she had underlined one sentence 3 times. He promised no new deposits until old jobs are clean. Check January statement. I looked at Nathan. Did you take any? His face answered before his mouth did. After January 27th, I said. Did you take another customer deposit? He looked away. And for the first time, I understood that whatever Carol had been trying to finish inside Unit 317, she had not been trying to save Nathan's business anymore. She had been trying to determine whether she could still trust her son. He looked away. Yes? How much? 8,000? For what job? Kitchen built-ins in Indian Hill? When? January 30th, 3 days after Carol had underlined the warning. Did you use it on older work? No. Any of it? No. Then where did it go? Nathan walked to one of the banker's boxes and pulled out a blue folder. I opened another checking account. He handed me a statement. Mercer Custom Cabinetry Project account. Opening deposit, $8,000. There were 2 withdrawals in February. One for 20,116s to Midwest Hardwood, the other for $684 to a hardware supplier. Both occurred after Carol died. The remaining balance was still there at the end of the statement. I looked at him. Your mother knew about this account? She made me open it. When? January. So this deposit wasn't the thing she was looking for. No. I went back to the yellow pad. He promised no new deposits until old jobs are clean. Check January statement. You did take a new deposit. Yes. But she allowed that one. After I showed her the contract and material list. Then why write this? Nathan stared at the paper. I don't know. You were there. I wasn't there when she wrote that. I looked through the January statements again. Main operating account, payroll account, business visa, the new project account. Something was missing. What happened between October and January? A lot. Financially, I got some work. You also got deeper in debt. Yes. How? He rubbed the back of his neck. Cash flow. I gave him the look Carol used to give me when I answered a specific question with a category. Nathan saw it. 2 jobs ran over. 1 customer held $12,000 over a punch list dispute. Truck transmission went. Health insurance renewed higher. Everything stacked up. And I borrowed. There it was. How much? 36. From whom? Redwood Business Funding. I had never heard of them. What kind of loan? Short-term working capital. What does short-term mean? 12 months? Interest? He hesitated. It wasn't structured like a normal bank loan. That usually means the number gets uglier when translated into normal language. How much do you repay on 36? 48, roughly. I stared at him. $12,000 to borrow 36 for a year. Yes. Daily payments? Weekdays? How much? About $185. I did the arithmetic in my head. Roughly $4,000 a month, leaving the account whether Nathan had a good week or a bad one. You did this after your mother paid the state $28,000. Yes. Did she know? Not when I signed it? I leaned against the folding table. When did she find out? January. I looked at her note again, not the customer deposit, the January statement. I turned through the bank pages more carefully. There it was, January 9th. ACH credit, Redwood Business Funding, $36,000, then starting January 10th. HEH debit, Redwood, $185.42. Again the next business day, and the next. Carol had circled the first 3 withdrawals in red pen. Beside them, what is this? On the next page, he says loan, did not tell me. Then underneath, paid taxes so he could breathe. He borrowed more instead. I read that sentence twice. Nathan stood a few feet away with his arms folded. What did she say when she found it? She was furious. She should have been. I know. Why did you do it? Because paying the tax debt didn't finish the jobs. You had receivables. Some. You had deposits. Tied to new work. You had equipment. That I needed to earn money. That is how business failures always explain their furniture. Nathan stared at me. I regretted the sentence as soon as I said it. Not because it was false. Because I had stopped asking and started prosecuting. I had done that to him before. I'm sorry, I said. He looked surprised. For what? That sounded like I'd already decided what you were. His arms lowered slightly. You usually do. There are times an adult child can return you to a mistake 20 years old with 4 words. I let that one stand. Why the loan? Nathan sat on an upside-down plastic bin. Because Mom's $28,000 fixed the most dangerous problem. The taxes. Yes. But it didn't make you solvent. No, and you didn't want to tell her that. I thought I could get through the backlog. So you borrowed 36. Yes. Without telling Dana? His eyes moved. That was an answer. Nathan. She knew the business had a loan. Did she know the terms? No. Amount? Not at first. Did she sign anything? No. The business was his corporation. He could borrow without his wife's signature if the lender accepted his guarantee and business assets. Legal did not mean wise. Did Carol tell you to shut down? No. What did she tell you? To stop changing the name of the problem. I almost smiled. That was Carol. What did she mean? I told her I hadn't taken another customer deposit to cover old work. She said, fine. So, instead of taking money from future jobs, you rented money from strangers at a stupid price. I could hear her saying stupid. She saved that word for interest rates, parking decisions, and people who washed cast iron with soap. She said I was changing the nouns. That is why she kept checking. Yes. So, by late January, she no longer trusted your description of the business. Nathan looked at the floor. No. That was an answer. Not the answer I wanted. I returned to the banker's box. The remaining pages were mostly copies. Statements Carol had apparently taken or printed. Invoices. A list of jobs still open. A legal pad page titled, "What must be finished before more help, 4 customer names. Tax payment current. No new borrowing. Separate new deposits. Show Dana actual numbers." That last one had been underlined once. I looked at Nathan. "Did you?" "No." "Tell Dana." "Not then." "Why not?" "She had enough going on." "Meaning?" "Her mother was sick." I knew that. Dana's mother had congestive heart failure and had been in and out of Bethesda North that winter. She was working fewer hours because she was helping her. "Yes." "And you decided that was a good reason not to tell your wife you had taken $36,000 at a rate that would embarrass a payday lender." Nathan's face tightened. "When you say it that way." "How else should I say it?" He did not answer. I kept looking. A white envelope lay beneath the legal pad. No label. Inside was a printout from a bank I recognized because Nathan and Dana had used it for years. Fifth Third. Not a business statement. At the top, Mercer Family Savings Joint Owners, Nathan Mercer, Dana Mercer. The statement covered June through August. I looked at Nathan. "Why did your mother have this?" "I don't know." That answer was too quick. The June opening balance was $24,781. By August 31st, it was $7,904. Several transfers had gone to Mercer Custom Cabinetry. $4,000, $3,500, $5, $200, $2,000, Nathan said. "That was our emergency fund. You moved $16,000 into the business." "Yes." Dana knew? Some? Some of the transfers? She knew I was using household savings. "How much did she think you used?" "I don't remember." "You remember." He looked away. 10. I put the statement down. "So your mother found out you had used more family money than your wife knew about?" "Yes." That hurt in a different way. Business debt can become abstract. Banks, vendors, invoices. A household savings account is heat, mortgage payments, car repairs, orthodontics. The week one person loses a job. Nathan had not just been gambling with the shop anymore. He had brought the problem home. I checked the next page, another account. This one had only a few transactions. The title made me stop. Sophie Mercer, Utah Savings Custodian. Nathan Mercer, Beneficiary, Sophie Mercer. I looked at my son. He did not move. The account balance in May had been $21,136. Carol and I had not created that account. I knew what it was, though. When Sophie was little, Nathan and Dana put birthday checks, small gifts from relatives, and some of Nathan's annual bonuses into a custodial account. Money intended for Sophie. Not technically a college plan, but that was what everyone called it. I remembered Carol saying once that Sophie had a little over $20,000 put away. I had assumed it was still there. The July statement showed a transfer. July 22nd, electronic transfer, $12,500 destination account, ending 9914. I did not need to ask where 9914 led. Carol had written beside it in red, "Business?" Under that, Nathan says temporary. Dana knows. And then, "This is Sophie's money." I felt something tighten behind my ribs. UTMA money is not a parent's emergency fund. Once money is placed in a custodial account for a child, it belongs to the child. A custodian can spend it for the child's benefit, not to patch a cabinet company. You transferred $12,500 out of Sophie's account. Nathan's voice was low. "Yes." "To the business?" "Yes." Did Dana know? Silence. Nathan. No. I sat down. For the first time since finding the storage key, I wanted to leave the unit. Not because I had learned enough. Because I had learned something I did not want to know. When? July? Before Carol paid the tax debt. Yes. Did your mother know when she gave you the $28,000? No. That changed everything. Carol believed she was rescuing Nathan from a business crisis caused by a failed customer and bad cash flow. Only later did she discover that before asking for her help, he had already reached into money belonging to his 16-year-old daughter. How did she find out? Nathan stared at the concrete floor. She saw the statement. "At your shop?" "Yes." The same day she saw the tax letter? No, later. When? September. The month Carol began using Unit 317. The timeline locked into place. July. Nathan moved Sophie's money. Summer. Carol discovered the business debt. October, she paid the tax balance. But in September, before writing that check, Carol had already seen the custodial statement. That made no sense. I looked back at him. You just told me she didn't know about Sophie's account when she paid the state. Nathan's face changed. He knew I had caught it. What are you leaving out? Dad. She found this in September. Yes. She paid your tax debt October 3rd. Yes. So she knew you had taken Sophie's money before she gave you $28,000. He said nothing. Why? Nathan's eyes filled. Not theatrically. He looked ashamed. She made me put it back. I stared at him. With what money? Another silence. Then I understood why the business records alone would never explain Unit 317. Carol had not simply rescued our son. Before she helped him, she had made him restore something he had no right to touch. What money did you use to repay Sophie? Nathan looked toward the locked cabinet, then at the blue archival box containing my father's letters and watch. Mom gave me the $12,500. I stood. So the $28,000 wasn't the first money she gave you? No. How much altogether? He swallowed. More than you know. And just like that, my working theory weakened again. I had thought Carol's secret was that she had paid one dangerous debt for our son, and then discovered he was still borrowing. Now I knew she had begun moving records into Unit 317 before the tax payment, after finding out he had taken money from his own daughter. The question was no longer why Carol had stopped trusting Nathan. The question was why, after discovering something that serious, she had chosen to give him even more money and keep all of it from me. The question was why, after discovering something that serious, she had chosen to give him even more money and keep all of it from me. Nathan answered part of it before I asked. She wasn't trying to save the shop. I looked at him. That is exactly what it looks like. I know. She gave you $12,500 to replace Sophie's money. Yes. $28,400 to $60,000 to clear the sales tax. Yes. And you just told me there was more. Yes. How much? He walked to the steel cabinet. On the third shelf were 3 white envelopes held together with a rubber band. Nathan pulled them out and handed them to me. Each had Carol's handwriting on the front. Parker Holland, Midwest Hardwood. Inside the Parker envelope was a copy of a cashier's check for $6,800. Holland, $4,150. Midwest Hardwood, $9,014. All purchased by Carol. All paid directly to somebody Nathan owed. I added them. $20,164. Yes. With the other 2 payments, your mother put more than $61,000 into cleaning up your business. $61,124. He knew the number. That mattered. And none of it came to you directly. No, I looked at him. You keep saying that like it helps. It mattered to Mom. Why? Because she said she wasn't funding me. She funded debts you created. She said there was a difference. What difference? Nathan looked toward the open storage door. Outside, somewhere 2 rows over, a roll-up door rattled against concrete. She said she would put back what should never have been touched. I waited. Sophie's money. Yes. The sales tax. Yes. Customer deposits. 2 of them. And the supplier. Yes. Then what? Then I was supposed to close the hole myself. That sentence did not sound like Nathan. It sounded like Carol. Did she put that in writing? He nodded toward the cabinet. I think so. I started searching. The folder was near the back. Red. Carol rarely used red folders because she said they made normal paperwork look like an emergency. On the tab, Nathan's plan inside was a 1-page typed document. Not a lawyer's agreement. Not notarized. No legal language beyond what Carol probably found online. But it was signed. Carol Mercer, Nathan Mercer, October 6th, 3 days after she paid the sales tax. The first paragraph listed what Carol had already paid. Sophie's custodial account restoration. Sales tax. Then it described any later direct payments Carol might make to customers or suppliers as additional advances. Nathan agreed to repay all of it without interest. Minimum payment, $500 per month starting January 1st. But the money was not the important part. Below it were 5 conditions. No new high-cost borrowing without showing Carol the terms. No transferring money from Sophie's account. New customer deposits used only for those projects unless disclosed in writing. Dana to receive a complete list of household money transferred into the business. And the last one, if the business cannot complete existing obligations without using new customer money to cover old work, Nathan will meet with a third party to discuss sale, merger, employment, or orderly shutdown. I read it again. Third party? Nathan's face tightened. Another cabinet company. What company? Barton Architectural Woodworks. I knew the name. Not personally. They operated a much larger millwork facility in Sharonville and did commercial interiors, medical offices, and higher-end residential work. What did Barton have to do with you? They'd approached me before. To buy the business? Not exactly. I waited. Nathan sighed. They wanted my customer list, some equipment, and 2 installers. They were willing to take over the lease if the landlord approved. What about you? They offered me a job. There it was. What kind? Production manager. Salary? 82. Nathan currently claimed his business paid him around 70 when things were good. $82,000 with benefits was not humiliation. It was an exit. Health insurance? Yes. Retirement? 401k. Then why did you say no? His expression hardened. I didn't say no. Did you say yes? No. That usually leaves one category. They undervalued the equipment. How much did they offer? $47,000 for assets and customer transition. And the lease? They'd assume it. Your expensive working capital loan? Still mine. Suppliers? Still mine. So 47 would reduce debt and you would have a job. Yes. Why didn't you take it? I thought I could recover. That answer was honest enough to hurt. I looked back at Carol's plan. She had not paid $61,000 because she believed Nathan's cabinet company deserved unlimited rescue. She had been buying time for him to stop harming people while he decided whether the business could survive honestly. There is a difference. Not always a financially wise one, but a moral one. Carol had restored Sophie's money because Sophie should never have carried the loss. She paid the sales tax because the state was already involved and penalties would grow. She covered customers and a supplier because Nathan had used their money elsewhere. She was not preserving the shop. She was unwinding damage. What did she tell you about Barton? That if I couldn't operate cleanly by January, I had to sit down with them again. Did you? Yes. When? January 23rd. 4 days before Carol wrote, he promised no new deposits until old jobs are clean. Check January statement. What happened? They made another offer. Better? A little. How much? $54,000. And the job? Same. Did you accept? Nathan did not answer. I looked at him. You told your mother you would consider sale if you couldn't stabilize. I considered it. That is a lawyer's answer from someone who didn't hire a lawyer. I didn't sign. Did Carol know? Yes. What did she say? She said I was confusing owning a business with having a life. I sat down on the plastic bin Nathan had used earlier. That sounded so much like Carol that for a second I could see her standing in the unit. Thin by then. Green coat zipped higher than usual because chemotherapy made her cold. A yellow pad in one hand. My son explaining numbers. My wife listening until the explanation ran out. I wondered how many afternoons she had spent here while I thought Julie had taken her to lunch. How often did she come? I asked. Maybe 7 times. 7? Something like that? In the last 5 months of her life. Yes. She was sick. I know. You let her spend that time sorting out your debts. Nathan's face changed. I didn't ask her to. No? No. You could have stopped her. She wouldn't stop. That is not the same thing. He looked at me. You think I don't know that? His eyes were wet now. I hated her coming here. Then why did you give her a key? Because when I told her no, she said she'd get Julie to drive her to the shop instead. Despite myself, I smiled. That was also Carol, Nathan continued. She said if I was going to lie by omission, she wanted somewhere she could keep copies I couldn't accidentally lose. I looked at the banker's box. So she did not trust you with the records? No. That was the midpoint of it. Carol had started as Nathan's rescuer. By September, she became his auditor. By January, she had become the person trying to get him out before pride turned desperation into something worse. And she did it behind my back. Not because she believed everything Nathan said, because she had stopped believing enough of it to document the rest. I went back to the blue archival box. I do not know why. Maybe because my father's watch was one thing in the unit whose history I understood completely. I lifted the stack of letters. Underneath the plastic sleeve holding his discharge papers was an envelope I had not seen earlier. Cream-colored. Folded once to fit. On the front, Mike Carroll had called me Mike from the week we met. Nobody else had for years. I stopped breathing normally. Nathan saw the envelope. His face changed. You knew that was there? No. Do not answer fast. I didn't. I looked at him. Did she ever tell you she left something for me? Nathan hesitated. That was enough. What? She said there were things in the cabinet you'd need eventually. That is not what I asked. No. What did she tell you? He rubbed his forehead. She said the blue box was yours. Obviously. And if she didn't get everything sorted, I was supposed to make sure you got it back. When? February. Before she died? Yes. How long before? He did not answer. Nathan. The day she brought it here. February 3rd, the note in her coat. 2:15. Bring blue box. 9 days before she died. I held the envelope. You knew I was supposed to get this box. Yes. For 8 months. Yes. And you never brought it to me. I forgot about the envelope. I did not ask about the envelope. Nathan went quiet. Why didn't you bring me the box? I didn't know you were ready. There it was again. People deciding what another person was ready to know. I looked at the handwriting. Carol had made a decision about me too. Maybe she intended to tell me herself. Maybe she ran out of time. Maybe Nathan had simply been ashamed. All of those things could be true. I opened the envelope. There were 3 handwritten pages. No dramatic goodbye. Carol had already written me one of those at home, sealed in the desk with our wills. This was different. It began, Mike, if you found this before I got brave enough to explain it, I'm sorry. I stopped. Nathan turned away. I read. Carol wrote that Nathan's trouble began with a real business loss. She believed that. But bad luck was only the beginning. Once he became afraid of losing the company, he started protecting the company from the truth. He moved household money, then Sophie's money, then taxes, then deposits. Each decision was temporary when he made it. Together they had become a system. Carol wrote that she used her mother's inheritance because she could not tolerate Sophie losing money entrusted to her, customers paying for work that might never be done, or the state eventually treating Nathan as if he had intentionally kept money that was never his. Then one sentence. I am not giving him money to keep the shop. I am paying to put innocent people back where they should have been before he made them part of his problem. I read it again. That answered the question. Why more money? Because Carol was not rescuing Nathan from consequences. She believed she was rescuing everyone else from Nathan's consequences. The next paragraph explained why she had kept me out. It was not flattering. She wrote that if she had told me in August, I would have demanded statements, told Dana everything, and probably pushed Nathan to close immediately. She added, You might have been right, which would have made him hear you even less. I sat down again. Nathan stared at the floor. Carol wrote that our son had spent his whole adult life trying to prove he did not need me. She blamed both of us for that. Me for turning help into terms and numbers. Nathan for treating questions like judgment. Herself for stepping between us so often that neither of us learned how to speak without her translating. Then I reached the final page. The handwriting became shakier. February 2nd, the day before she brought the blue box. I gave him until the end of January to show Dana the real numbers and choose whether Barton is the way out. He says he will. I want to believe him. Below that, if he tells you I was trying to save Mercer Custom Cabinetry, don't believe that. I was trying to save Nathan from becoming the kind of man who needs one more lie to protect the last one. Then the last line. There is still one thing Dana does not know. Julie has a copy. Make Nathan tell her himself if I can't. I lowered the page. Nathan had gone pale. I looked at him. What doesn't Dana know? He shook his head. Dad. What? You need to hear this from me before Julie tells you. Then tell me. His eyes moved toward the open storage door. Not toward the debt files, not toward Sophie's statement. toward the wrapped equipment and finished cabinets that represented the business he had spent 12 years building. Then he said, "Barton didn't just offer to buy the equipment. I waited. They offered enough to get me out." Out of what? Almost all of it. That made no sense. $54,000 does not cover what you owe. No. Then what does? Nathan looked at me. The second offer. What second offer? The one Mom knew about. And for the first time, I understood that Carol had died, believing Nathan had a realistic way to end the crisis. A way he had never mentioned to his wife. Or to me. And whatever that offer required him to give up, he had apparently spent the 8 months since Carol's death refusing to do it. The one Mom knew about. I waited. Nathan rubbed both hands over his face. Barton came back January 23rd with a different structure. How different? They weren't just buying equipment anymore. What were they buying? Most of the open work, customer relationships, my drawings where customers approved transfer, some inventory, the equipment they wanted, and they'd take over 3 unfinished contracts, including Parker. Yes. What about the deposits? They would credit what the customers had already paid against the work. That was worth real money, not money handed to Nathan, obligations removed from his side of the ledger. How much cash? $72,000 at closing, plus the work they assumed. Yes. How much was that worth? Depends how you count it, Nathan. About $31,000 in remaining labor and material. So roughly $100,000 of value. Yes. And the job? $85,000. Health insurance, 3 weeks vacation, retirement match. I stared at him. That sounds less like someone trying to steal your company and more like somebody giving you a ladder. I know what it sounds like now. What did it sound like then? Like 12 years of work being priced as used machinery and a phone list. That answer I understood, not agreed with. Understood. Nathan had started Mercer Custom Cabinetry in a rented 2-car garage after the company he worked for eliminated his department. For the first 2 years, he installed kitchens during the day and built custom pieces at night. Carol used to brag about the first dining table he sold for $3,000. I used to point out that after materials and 80 hours of labor, he had probably earned less than minimum wage. We both thought we were helping. Carol by celebrating, me by calculating. Nathan remembered both. Did you accept Barton's second offer? I signed a letter of intent. That was the thing. You signed it. Yes. Binding? Mostly no. Mostly is doing a lot of work. It said either side could walk before the asset purchase agreement was finalized. Did Barton pay you anything? No. Did they begin due diligence? Yes. What did they see? Financials, equipment list, customer contracts, lease. Your debt? Most of it. Carol's money? Nathan looked away. No. I stared at him. You gave a buyer financial statements without the $61,000 you owed your mother. It wasn't on the business books. It was money used to satisfy business obligations. I know. Did Barton ask about related party debt? Yes. And? I said none. I took a breath. That was not a bookkeeping misunderstanding. That was false. Yes. Why? Because I thought Mom might forgive it. Had she? No. Had she suggested it? No. The signed repayment plan was still on the table between us. $500 a month, no interest. Clear enough. So even in the deal that was supposed to clean this up, you were hiding one of the debts. Nathan looked at me. I was trying to make the sale happen. You just told me you didn't want the sale. I didn't know what I wanted. That was probably the most honest thing he had said all morning. What did Carol want? For me to sign. You did. She wanted the final agreement too. Did Dana know? She knew Barton had approached me. The first offer? Yes. The second? No. Why? Because I told her they weren't serious. I looked back at Carol's letter. There is still one thing Dana does not know. Julie has a copy. Make Nathan tell her himself if I can't. The second offer? Nathan nodded. And the signed letter of intent? Yes. Julie has a copy. Yes. How? Mom asked for one. Of course she did. Nathan sat down. She said Dana had to know before I signed the final agreement. Reasonable. I told her I'd tell Dana after Barton finished due diligence. Why after? Because if the deal died, there was nothing to tell. I almost answered, then stopped. That logic was familiar. Do not upset someone until the uncertainty becomes a fact. I had used versions of it myself. Carol, too. The difference was scale. You were deciding what your wife needed to know about her own household income. Nathan looked at the floor. Yes. What happened after January 23rd? Barton started reviewing everything. And Carol? She kept asking. About whether you told Dana? Yes. Did you? No. When was the final purchase agreement supposed to be signed? February 14th, 2 days after Carol died. I felt my stomach tighten. She knew that date? Yes. Did she know she might not make it? Nathan's eyes filled. She knew. Carol had become very weak after February 3rd. By the 8th, hospice was coming to the house. On the 10th, she slept almost the entire day. She died early on the morning of the 12th, with Julie on one side of the bed and me on the other. Nathan arrived 20 minutes later because he had driven home to shower. I remembered him standing in our bedroom doorway, his mother gone, his face empty. Now there was another date inside that memory. February 14th. A sale waiting 2 days later. What did you do? I asked. After she died? Yes, Nathan said nothing. You canceled it. I asked Barton for time. How much? A week? And then? I walked. I looked at him. Why? He laughed once without humor. Pick a reason. I'd prefer yours. He leaned forward. Mom had spent months telling me the business was becoming something I didn't recognize. Sounds accurate. I knew she was probably right. Then why walk? Because after she died, selling felt like making her last 5 months about cleaning up my failure. That is not rational. No. What else? I thought spring work would turn it around. Did it? Some? What else? He looked at me. I didn't want to become somebody's production manager. There it was, not money. Identity. I built the name. Yes. I hired people. Yes. I had customers who called me, not Barton. Yes. And I kept thinking if I sold after Mom put all that money in, then she died watching me fail anyway. I sat down across from him. You think keeping the company proves her money worked? I did then. And now? Nathan looked around Unit 317, the unfinished vanity, boxes of hardware, old tools, his mother's gray cabinet. No, that answer mattered. I returned to the signed repayment agreement. You paid her $500 in January? Yes. February? She died before I made it. After she died? No. March? No. Any month since? No. So you have repaid none of the $61,000 except $500. Correct. Did you tell the estate attorney this debt existed? No. Did you tell me? No. Did Julie? No. That last answer bothered me enough that I picked up my phone. Nathan saw it. Who are you calling? Marcia Keller, our estate attorney. His chair scraped against the concrete. Dad. I need to know what that agreement means. You don't have to do that right now. Yes, I do. You've known about this for 20 minutes, and you've known for a year. His face hardened. Mom didn't want you turning this into collections. You do not know what your mother wanted after her death. She was my mother too. I'm aware. She was helping me. She also made you sign a repayment agreement. Nathan stood. If you call a lawyer before you even understand everything, you're doing exactly what she knew you'd do. That stopped me. Not because he was right about the call, because there was truth in the accusation. My instinct was already converting grief into procedure. Document, verify, protect the estate, identify exposure. For 35 years, that sequence had kept companies from making expensive mistakes. Families are not companies, but signed obligations do not disappear because everybody is related. I'm not demanding payment today. It feels like you are. I'm asking what I'm responsible for. As executor, yes. You already closed the estate. That was true. Carol's estate had been relatively simple. Our house passed to me, joint accounts passed to me, beneficiaries handled retirement assets. Her separate brokerage account and a few personal items went through the estate. Marcia filed what was required. I had signed final papers months earlier. None of them listed a $60,000 receivable from our son. Because I did not know it existed, I called anyway. Marcia answered on the third ring. I gave her only the basic facts, signed written agreement, specific advances, repayment terms, one payment made, no disclosure during administration. She did not give me a dramatic answer. Lawyers worth keeping rarely do. Bring me copies, she said. I want to see exactly what was signed and how the payments were characterized. Could it be an estate asset? Possibly. Would we need to reopen anything? Possibly. Nathan paced 10 feet away. What should I do meanwhile? Do not destroy anything. Do not alter documents. Do not make promises about forgiveness or collection until I've reviewed it. Understood. And Mike? Yes. Do not turn a preliminary question into a family emergency before I see the paperwork. I looked at Nathan. I'll try. Marcia knew me. After the call, Nathan said, Happy? No. You've been waiting your whole life to prove I should have listened to you. That one hit hard. You think this is about being right? I think some part of you is relieved there's finally paperwork. I did not answer quickly enough. Nathan laughed bitterly. Mom knew it. What did she know? That you don't trust people until they can explain themselves in columns. That is unfair, is it? Yes. He pointed at the banker's box. You've been here 2 hours and I can see you sorting me into categories. I'm trying to understand what happened. You're building a claim file. I wanted to deny it. Could not. Because he was partly right. That was my mistake. I had been so determined not to accuse Nathan without evidence that once I found evidence, I began treating every unanswered question as adverse. Carol had not done that. She had checked him, pressed him, made him restore money. But she had also kept looking for a way to leave him with a life after the damage was repaired. I was not there yet. I gathered copies of the signed agreement, Carol's notes, and the Barton letter of intent. Nathan watched me. You're taking those? Copies. The originals stay. Fine. I photographed every page with my phone. He hated it. I could tell. At 11:30, we left separately. By noon, Dana called me. Nathan had moved faster than I expected. Mike, what are you doing? No hello. I'm guessing Nathan called. He says you're trying to make Carol's estate collect $60,000 from us. That is not what I said. He says you called a lawyer. I did. Why? Because there was a written repayment agreement nobody disclosed. Silence. What repayment agreement? There it was. Nathan had still not told her everything. Dana, you need to talk to your husband. I am talking to you. This belongs with him first. Did Carol give Nathan money or loan him money? I closed my eyes. He needs to explain it. How much? I did not answer. Dana's voice changed. Mike, talk to Nathan. Does Sophie's account have something to do with this? That surprised me. Why are you asking that? Another silence. Then, because Carol asked me last September how much I thought was in it. Nathan had told me Dana did not know he took Sophie's money. That might still be true, but Carol had been testing what Dana knew, and perhaps Dana had been suspicious longer than anyone admitted. I'm not discussing Sophie's account until Nathan is with you. Dana exhaled. You men are unbelievable. Then she hung up. At 4:30, I drove back to Westchester Self-Storage. Marcia wanted clearer photographs of the signatures and the payment list. I had the key Carol carried. I entered Nathan's gate code. It no longer worked. I tried again. Denied. I called Nathan. No answer. Then I walked to Unit 317 from the office side, after explaining that I needed to retrieve personal property belonging to my late wife. The manager checked the lease. His expression became apologetic. Sir, you're not an authorized user. My son let me in this morning. I understand. I have a key. He changed the lock at 217. I looked down the row. Unit 317 had a new disc lock through the latch. My key was useless. The manager lowered his voice. He also removed your name from the temporary access note he added this morning. I stared at the red tag marked 317 in my hand. For 8 months, that key had been the last physical connection to a secret Carol built around our son. In one afternoon, Nathan had made sure it opened nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from him. You wanted lawyers involved. Fine. From now on, do this properly. Do not enter my unit again without me. I read it twice. He was within his rights. That was what made the setback so complete. I had pushed too fast. Nathan had closed the one place where Carol's records still existed in full. And if there was anything else in that gray cabinet she intended me to find, I had just given my son every reason to reach it before I did. And if there was anything else in that gray cabinet she intended me to find, I had just given my son every reason to reach it before I did. I drove home. That was harder than it sounds. Every instinct I had told me to call Nathan again. Call the manager, call Marcia, find out whether an estate could demand access, whether I could seek an inventory, whether photographs from that morning established enough interest in Carol's cabinet to keep anything from being removed. I did none of it. Marcia had told me not to turn a preliminary question into a family emergency. I had already come close. So, I went home, put the useless key on the kitchen table, and called Julie. She answered with, "He changed the lock, didn't he?" I looked at the red tag marked 317. "How did you know?" "Because he called me." "When?" "About 20 minutes ago." "What did he say?" "That you were treating him like a criminal." "I called a lawyer about a signed debt agreement." "I know." "Did he tell you that?" "He told me enough." That phrase again. Enough. "You home?" "Yes. I'm coming over." Julie lived in Montgomery, 15 minutes from me. She had divorced 6 years earlier and stayed in the house because her youngest had still been in school. Both boys were grown now, one in Columbus and one in Louisville. But Julie said selling a house because it contained empty bedrooms was like selling your car because the passenger seat was unoccupied. Another Carol sentence wearing different clothes. I arrived at 5:40. Julie had coffee waiting. She also had a plastic file box on her dining room table. I stopped in the doorway. "What is that?" "Mom's copies." I looked at her. "All of them?" "I don't know." "How long have you had this?" "Since February." That was an answer I had not prepared for. "You've had copies of Nathan's business records for 8 months." "Yes." "And you never told me." "No." She sat down. "Before you get angry, let me explain the part Mom asked me to do." "I'm already angry." "I know, but I'm listening." Julie opened the box. Inside were photocopies of many things I had seen that morning. The tax notice, Sophie's custodial statement, the cashier's checks, Nathan's repayment agreement, customer deposit records, the Barton letter of intent. Carol had created redundancy. One set in Unit 317. One with Julie. That was not casual organization. That was what people do when they are afraid one copy might disappear. "Did Nathan know you had these?" "Some." "What does some mean?" "He knew Mom gave me the Barton offer and the signed repayment agreement." "Did he know about Sophie's statement?" "No." "Why not?" "Mom asked me not to tell him what she copied." I sat across from her. "So by January, your mother thought Nathan might interfere with her records." Julie looked uncomfortable. "She didn't say it that way." "How did she say it?" "She said, 'I love your brother, but fear makes people tidy up the version of things they wish was true.'" I leaned back. That was better than anything I had said in Unit 317. Carol had not called Nathan dishonest. She had identified what his dishonesty looked like. Editing. "Why Unit 317? Originally?" "Yes." Julie wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. "Mom wanted somewhere outside your house." "Why?" "Because she didn't want you finding everything before she knew what she was going to do." That hurt. I let it. "And outside Nathan's shop?" "Yes." "So the storage unit was neutral ground?" "Sort of. Except it was rented in Nathan's name. He already had it." "Right." Julie nodded. "When Mom first found the tax problem, she thought she was helping him through a bad business year." "I know." "Then she found Sophie's account." "I know that too." "That changed her." "How?" "She stopped asking, 'How much do you need?' and started asking, 'What have you already done?'" There was the deeper shift. Not rescuer to auditor merely because the numbers grew. Rescuer to auditor because Carol realized every new answer might depend on an earlier answer being incomplete. Julie opened a folder I had not seen in Unit 317. Across the front, Carol had written, "Things I have to stop doing." I looked at Julie. "What is this?" "Read it." The first page was handwritten, not business numbers, confession. Carol wrote, "I keep giving Nathan time to tell Dana because I am afraid the truth will break their marriage. That is not my decision to make." Below it, "I keep telling myself I am protecting Sophie by putting her money back before Dana knows it was gone. But putting it back does not erase what happened. Then, I keep waiting for Nathan to become less afraid before I make him face what fear has made him do. I may be helping the waiting more than the fixing." I stopped reading. For the first time, Carol's secrecy looked different to me. Not like a plan she was confident in, like a compromise she had begun to distrust. "She knew," I said. Julie nodded. "She knew what?" "That she was protecting him too much." "Yes." Then why didn't she tell Dana? She was going to. When? After the Barton deal was final. I rubbed my forehead. More waiting. Yes. Did you tell her that? I did. That surprised me. What did she say? She told me to mind my own business. I smiled despite myself. Then 2 days later she called and said I was right. That also sounded like Carol. Julie continued. She wanted Nathan to tell Dana himself before the final agreement. February 14th. Yes. And if he didn't? Mom was going to. There it was. Carol had said a line. Late. Maybe too late. But a line. What was your role? If she got too sick? To tell Dana? Julie shook her head. To make sure Nathan did. That is not the same thing. I know. Did Carol know the difference? At the end, I think she did. Julie reached deeper into the file box and removed a printout of text messages. Carol's number at the top, Julie's below. February 1st. Carol. If he does not tell Dana by next Friday, I need you there when I do. I don't want him saying later that I misunderstood the numbers. Julie. You need to tell Mike too. Carol. Yes. Julie. When? Carol. After Nathan tells Dana. Mike will make this about shutting the business. I need Nathan to make one honest decision before his father makes one for him. I read that twice. Not flattering, but understandable. Carol still believed I might take over the decision if I entered too early. Maybe I would have. What happened February 3rd? I asked. Julie looked toward the file box. That was the day Mom brought the blue box. I know. She was getting weaker. I know that too. She said she wasn't sure she'd make it to the 14th. My throat tightened. Those final days returned without permission. Carol eating 4 bites of soup. Carol sleeping with the television on. Carol asking whether we had enough stamps. Ordinary questions from someone quietly measuring how many ordinary days remained. Julie handed me another page. It was a screenshot from her phone. February 3rd, 3:41 p.m. Carol. Blue box is in my cabinet at 3:17. Mike's letter is inside with his dad's things. If I can't tell him myself, Nathan is supposed to return the whole box to him. I stopped. Read it again. Then once more. Mike's letter. Nathan is supposed to return the whole box. My son had stood beside me that morning and said he did not know the envelope was there. That could still be true. Carol's text to Julie did not prove she had told Nathan about the letter. Then Julie said, "There's another one." She slid her phone across the table. This was a group text. Carol, Nathan, Julie. February 3rd, 4:06 p.m. Carol, Nathan, blue box in my cabinet is your dad's. There is a letter for him inside. Do not open it. If I don't get it home myself, you take it to him. Nathan. Okay. Carol. I mean it, Nathan. I know, Mom. I will. I stared at those 4 words. I know, Mom. I will. My son had known, not guessed, not forgotten that the box belonged to me, known there was a letter inside, promised his dying mother he would deliver it, then kept it for 8 months. I looked at Julie. You knew this. Yes. And you let him keep it. Her eyes filled. Yes. Why? Because after Mom died, everything fell apart. That is not an answer. I know. Try again. Julie looked down. Nathan called me the day after the funeral. What did he say? He said Barton was pushing for an answer. And? He said he couldn't deal with Dad, Dana, the business, and Mom's records all at once. So he asked you to keep quiet. Yes. For how long? A week. I almost laughed. A week. The most dangerous unit of time in our family. Temporary. Until things settle. Until someone is stronger. Until the right moment. What happened after a week? He said he needed another. And then? He walked away from Barton. And you still said nothing? No. Why? Julie's voice cracked. Because he told me he was going to fix it. I looked at her. You believed him. I wanted to. That was more honest. He said if you found out Mom had loaned him $60,000, you'd force him to sell. I couldn't force him. You know that. I know it now. You knew it then. She shook her head. Not emotionally. That phrase stopped me. Julie continued. You have to understand what you're like when you think someone you love is driving toward a wall. I sat back. I tell them there's a wall. No. She looked straight at me. You grab the wheel. That hurt because Carol had written almost the same thing in a kinder way. You and Mom both spent years protecting Nathan from different things, Julie said. She protected him from you taking over. You protected him from mistakes by trying to take over before he made them. Nathan learned to hide problems until they were too big for either of you to control. That sounds convenient for Nathan. It isn't an excuse. Sounds close. It's why Mom wanted him to tell Dana himself. I looked at the papers, and he didn't. No. Did he ever tell you why he kept my blue box? Julie wiped one eye. At first he said he couldn't face giving you the letter because it would start everything. And later? He said once he walked away from Barton, he knew the letter would tell you enough to ask questions. So he hid it. Yes. There was the emotional betrayal. Not money, not the business, not even the $61,000. Nathan had knowingly kept one of the last letters my wife wrote to me because the truth inside might interfere with the life he wanted to preserve. Grief did not excuse that. Fear did not excuse it. Pride certainly did not. But as angry as I was, another fact became impossible to ignore. Julie had helped him. Carol had spent months giving him chances. I had spent years making questions feel like verdicts. Nathan's secrecy had grown inside a family that kept postponing truth for reasons that sounded loving while we were saying them. I picked up my phone. Julie said, "What are you doing?" "Calling your brother." "Mike, I'm not calling a lawyer." She waited. Nathan answered on the fifth ring. "Dad." I kept my voice level. "Did your mother tell you there was a letter for me in the blue box?" "Nothing." I looked at the group text in front of me. "Nathan." He breathed out. "Yes." That one word changed the entire shape of what he had done. "You told me this morning you didn't know." I panicked. "For 8 months? No." "Then how long?" He did not answer. I did not raise my voice. "What did you think would happen if I read it?" His answer came quietly. "You'd see what she saw." "And what was that?" Nathan took a long breath. "That I wasn't trying to save the business anymore." I waited. I was trying to save the version of myself that still owned it. For the first time all day, I had nothing to correct. Because I finally understood why Carol had stopped trying to rescue Mercer Custom Cabinetry. She had realized the business was no longer the thing Nathan was protecting. His pride was. And that meant the debt, the lies, the hidden letter, even Unit 317 itself were all consequences of a deeper problem. My son would rather keep losing pieces of his life than admit the thing carrying his name might need to end. My son would rather keep losing pieces of his life than admit the thing carrying his name might need to end. I stayed at Julie's another 20 minutes after the call. Neither of us said much. Carol's file box sat between us. Numbers, copies, promises, evidence of 5 months my wife had spent doing work I never knew existed. When I finally stood to leave, Julie asked, "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." She looked surprised. "You always know." "No. I usually know what I think should happen." "That's different?" "I'm beginning to suspect it is." I drove home with Carol's letter in the passenger seat. Not the original. I had photographed every page. The original was still in Nathan's storage unit behind a lock he controlled. I read the copy again at my kitchen table. The sentence about me bothered me most. I need Nathan to make one honest decision before his father makes one for him. Carol had believed I could force decisions simply by entering a room convinced enough. Legally, that was nonsense. Emotionally, I understood exactly what she meant. Nathan had spent years measuring his adulthood, partly by whether he could resist me. I had spent years calling that stubbornness. Carol saw the transaction more clearly. I pushed, he withheld. I pushed harder because he withheld. He withheld more because I pushed harder. Then Carol stepped between us and translated until she became the person both of us trusted more than we trusted each other. Now, she was gone. And for 8 months, Nathan had kept one of her last letters from me because he knew it would remove her from the middle. At 9 the next morning, Dana called. Her voice was flat. "I need you to come over." "Is Nathan there?" "Yes." "Julie?" I asked her, too. "What do you want me to bring?" "Everything Carol left." I looked at the copies Julie had made for me before I left. "I'll be there." Nathan and Dana lived in a 4-bedroom brick house on a quiet street in Mason. I had helped Nathan install the kitchen cabinets 12 years earlier. He built them himself. Cherry fronts, soft close drawers. Carol had spent an entire weekend rubbing oil into the butcher block island, while Nathan told her she was doing it wrong. When I walked in that morning, Dana was sitting at that island with both hands around a coffee mug. Nathan stood near the refrigerator. Julie was already there. No one offered coffee. Dana pointed at the chair across from her. "Sit." I sat. She looked at Nathan. "Start again." He swallowed. "I told you." "You told me pieces." Nathan looked at me. Dana caught it. "Do not look at your father. Look at me." He did. "How much did Carol give you?" $61,124. Dana closed her eyes. She had heard the number already. It still hurt the second time. "What was the first payment?" $12,500. "4?" Nathan hesitated. Dana's voice hardened. "For what?" "Sophie's account." Her hand left the coffee mug. "What about Sophie's account?" Nathan looked at the counter. I hated watching it. I also knew it needed to happen without me supplying the words. "I moved $12,500 from her custodial savings into the business." Dana stared at him. "No." "Yes." "No, you told me we moved money from family savings." "We did." "You told me Sophie had a little over 20,000. "She did." "Does she now?" "Yes." "How?" "Mom replaced it." Dana stood so quickly the chair legs scraped tile. "You took our daughter's money?" "I put it back." "Your mother put it back." Nathan flinched. Dana looked at me. "Did Carol know?" "Yes." "Before she helped him with the taxes?" "Yes." She turned back to Nathan. "So your mother knew you took money from Sophie, and you still let me believe our daughter's account had never been touched." Nathan's voice was barely audible. "Yes." Dana walked away from the island. For a minute she stood at the kitchen window. Then she asked, "What else?" Nathan told her about the sales tax. She knew some of that. Not the amount. Then the customer deposits. She knew none of that. Then Redwood business funding. 36,000 borrowed at a cost of almost 12,000 over a year. Dana laughed once. Not because anything was funny. "You told me that loan was 20. It started at 36. You told me 20. I told you what was left. That is not the same sentence." No one defended him. Then she asked about Barton. Nathan went quiet. Dana looked at Julie. "What is Barton?" Julie did not answer for him. "Good," Nathan said. "The company that offered to take over part of the business." Dana frowned. "They made that little offer last winter." "The first one." Her eyes narrowed. "What first one?" Nathan looked at me. I said, "Tell her." He did. 72,000 cash. Existing jobs assumed. Lease relief. Production manager position at 85,000. Benefits, retirement plan, a path out. Dana did not react immediately. That frightened me more than shouting would have. Finally she asked, "When?" "January. Before Carol died." "Yes." "And what did you do?" "I signed a letter of intent." Dana stared at him. You told me they weren't serious." "I know. You told me they wanted the machines for nothing and didn't care what happened to you. That was the first offer." "You never told me there was another." "No." "Why?" Nathan's eyes filled. "I didn't know if I could give up the company." Dana's face changed. Not anger now. Something closer to recognition. Then she said, "Your mother." Nathan froze. I felt it too. Dana looked at me. "Mike, what did Carol want him to do?" There are moments when truth becomes dangerous because answering it harms someone you still love. I thought about protecting Nathan, just for a second. Carol had done that too many times. She wanted him to seriously take the Barton exit. Dana looked at Nathan. He said nothing. Her voice dropped. "After the funeral, you told me your mother didn't want you selling." Nobody moved. I looked at my son. "What?" Dana's eyes stayed on him. "You said Carol told you not to make a permanent decision while you were grieving. You said she believed the shop could recover." Nathan closed his eyes. I felt something cold move through me. "Did you tell her that?" I asked. He did not answer. Julie spoke. "Nathan." "Yes." Dana's mouth opened slightly. "You told me it was one of the last clear conversations you had with her." "It was a conversation." "That is not what I asked." Nathan sat down. "She told me not to decide anything because I was scared." Dana stared at him. "And?" "She told me the business wasn't my whole life." "And?" His voice broke. "She said if Barton was still willing, I should take the meeting." Dana stepped backward as if the island had moved. You told me the opposite. Yes? Why? I couldn't lose Mom and the business in the same week. That wasn't your choice to make for me. I know. No, you don't. Her voice rose for the first time. I worked extra shifts because you said keeping the shop was what your mother believed in. Nathan started crying. Dana did not stop. I canceled the trip with my mother because you said cash was tight. Her mother had died in May, 3 months after Carol. I remembered Dana missing a planned weekend in Gatlinburg because Nathan had an installation problem. I had not known why money was involved. You told me Carol said walking away right after she died would be grief making the decision. Nathan covered his face. Dana looked at Julie. Did Carol say that? Julie's eyes filled. No. Then she opened Carol's file box. I have something. She pulled out another printed text thread. February 9th, 3 days before Carol died. Carol to Julie. Nathan is still talking like Mercer Cabinetry is one of my grandchildren. It isn't. A business is not a child. You are allowed to close a business and still be the same person. Then, if Barton is still there, I hope he takes it. Mostly I hope he tells Dana everything before he asks her to live with whatever comes next. Dana read the page. Then she sat down. Nathan looked destroyed. I felt no satisfaction. That surprised me. For days I had wanted certainty. There it was. My son had not merely hidden Carol's letter. He had used her memory after she died to support the exact decision she had been urging him to reconsider. Not for money alone, not because he enjoyed deceiving Dana, because he needed his mother's approval badly enough to invent a version that survived her. Dana whispered, You made me think Carol wanted this. I know. She was dead. I know. She could not correct you. Nathan cried harder. I know. That was the deepest betrayal in the room. Not Sophie's $12,500. Not the tax debt. Not the Barton offer. He had borrowed his dead mother's voice because nobody could argue with it. Dana left the kitchen. We heard the bedroom door close upstairs. Nathan did not follow. For several minutes he sat with his face in his hands. Then the front door opened. Sophie came in. School backpack over one shoulder. She stopped when she saw all of us. What happened? Nathan wiped his face. Nothing. I almost laughed at the reflex. Nothing. The family word for something we were not ready to explain. Sophie looked at her father. Dad? Nathan opened his mouth, then stopped. I watched him make the decision. Your mom and I have some things to talk about. Are you getting divorced? No. He looked toward the stairs. I don't know. Sophie's face went pale. Julie stood and put an arm around her. Nathan said, I made some bad financial decisions with the business. Sophie looked at him. How bad? Bad enough that I should have told Mom sooner? She looked at the adults, then at me. Grandma knew? No one answered quickly. That was enough. Sophie started crying. I knew something was weird before she died. Nathan looked up. What do you mean? She kept asking me about college. Carol had done that. We all remembered. What about college? Nathan asked. She asked whether I'd be okay if I went somewhere cheaper. Nathan's face collapsed. Sophie continued. I thought she was worried Grandpa would have to help pay. I could not speak. Carol had replaced Sophie's money before asking the question. The account was whole, but she had still been wondering what damage Nathan's choices might eventually cause. My granddaughter had unknowingly spent one of her last conversations with Carol reassuring a dying woman that she did not need an expensive college to be happy. That was the moment I stopped thinking about $61,000. I thought about time. Carol's time, her last fall, September through February, appointments, pain, medication, fear. And between those things, she had been copying statements, driving to Unit 317, making payment arrangements, worrying about Sophie, negotiating with Nathan, tracking whether he told Dana, and writing contingency instructions for Julie. I had been beside her. I had not known. Partly because she hid it. Partly because Nathan needed hiding. Partly because she believed telling me would make me seize the wheel, and I had given her reasons to believe that. I stood. Nathan looked up. Dad! I could not trust myself to answer. I walked outside, sat in my car, did not start it. For the first time since Carol died, I was angry with her. That felt terrible. I was angry she had spent precious energy protecting Nathan from me. Angry she had kept me outside a problem that consumed some of the last clear weeks we had. Angry she had decided I could not be trusted to know until Nathan was ready. Then I was angry with myself because I understood why. Years of turning help into conditions. Years of answering uncertainty with instruction. Years of making my children feel that admitting a mistake meant surrendering control of what happened next. I had not caused Nathan to take Sophie's money. I had not caused him to lie to Dana. Those choices were his. But I had helped build a family where truth was often delayed until the person telling it believed they could survive my reaction. I sat there until Julie came outside. "You okay?" "No." She leaned against the car. "What are you going to do?" I looked through the windshield at Nathan's house. "I'm going to stop rescuing him." Julie waited. "And I'm going to stop deciding for him." That sounds contradictory. It isn't. I finally understood what Carol had been trying to do before she ran out of time. Protection was not the same as rescue. Accountability was not the same as control. Nathan had to tell the truth. He had to face the debt. He had to decide whether Mercer Custom Cabinetry lived or died. But I could no longer let his fear make Sophie, Dana, Carol's estate, or anyone else pay for the privilege of postponing that decision. I started the car. For the first time since finding the key, I knew what needed protecting. Not Unit 317. Not the $61,000. Not even the business. The truth Carol had spent her last months trying to keep from being edited one more time. The truth Carol had spent her last months trying to keep from being edited one more time. I did not drive straight home. I went to Marcia Keller's office. She had already reviewed the photographs I sent from Unit 317 and asked me to bring copies of anything Julie had. Her conference room looked exactly the way it had when Carol and I updated our wills 6 years earlier. Same walnut table, same framed photograph of Cincinnati from the river. Different chair beside me. I put Carol's repayment agreement, the cashier's checks, the Barton letter, and Julie's copies on the table. Marcia read for almost 40 minutes. I said nothing. That took effort. Finally, she removed her glasses. The debt is real enough that I would not ignore it. Meaning Carol documented specific advances, Nathan acknowledged repayment, signed terms, and made at least one payment. So the estate owns $60,000. Potentially the unpaid balance, yes. Potentially? I want the original documents before I make stronger statements. Nathan controls them. You have copies. Julie has copies. That helps. What happens now? Marcia folded her hands. We may need to reopen the estate administration to account for an omitted asset. Will that create trouble for Nathan? That depends what you mean by trouble. Can someone force him to pay immediately? Not from what I've seen. Carol's agreement called for monthly payments. $500? Yes. He hasn't paid since January. Then he's in default under the terms as written. I looked at the papers. 6 months ago, that sentence would have activated every practical instinct I had. Notice, demand, deadline, collection. Instead, I heard Carol. I am not giving him money to keep the shop. What if I don't want to sue him? Then don't. That simple? No. Marcia smiled slightly. You still have duties as executor if the estate is reopened. You cannot pretend an asset does not exist merely because collecting it is emotionally inconvenient. But debts can sometimes be settled, restructured, compromised, or distributed depending on the estate and beneficiary interests. Who ultimately receives the value? She looked at me. Under Carol's will, the residuary beneficiary was you. So eventually, in practical terms, Nathan owed me. I hated that. Not because I wanted the money, because it recreated the relationship both of us understood too well. Father, son, loan, terms, balance. I said, I don't want this to become the $15,000 business loan again. Marcia remembered. You made him sign a promissory note. He paid it early. And apparently spent 20 years making sure he never needed to ask me again. That may be emotionally relevant. She tapped Carol's agreement. It does not make this paper disappear. I know. What do you want, Mike? That question had followed me for 3 days. I want Nathan to stop making everybody else finance his refusal to admit the company may be finished. That sounds less like a legal objective. It is. Good. She pushed the papers back toward me. Then use the law only for the part that actually belongs to the law. What part? Preserve the debt. Account for it correctly. Do not forgive it today. Do not threaten criminal consequences you cannot establish. Do not use estate paperwork to force a business decision that is Nathan's. That was annoyingly sensible. What should I do? Give him a chance to produce the original agreement and a complete accounting voluntarily. And if he refuses, then call me. I stood. At the door, Marcia said, "Mike." I turned. Carol appears to have spent a great deal of effort trying to separate helping Nathan from helping Nathan avoid consequences. Yes. Do not combine them again just because you're angry. That stayed with me. At 6 that evening, I called Nathan. I want one meeting. He sounded exhausted. About what? Everything. With the lawyer? No? Then who? You, Dana, me, Julie if you want her, and an accountant who does not work for your business. Silence. Why an accountant? Because none of us should be arguing from numbers you supplied, or numbers I reconstructed from your mother's copies. What are you trying to prove? Nothing. You don't bring an accountant to prove nothing. I want to know whether Mercer Custom Cabinetry can pay what it currently owes without using tomorrow's money to cover yesterday. He did not answer. If it can, you decide what comes next. And if it can't, you decide what comes next. That sounds like the same answer. It is. Another silence. I'm not going to force you to sell. Nathan laughed bitterly. Really? Yes. What changed? Your mother was right about one thing. Only one? I have a list. We can discuss it later. He waited. I spent years believing that if I saw the answer before you did, I should push until you got there. That is pretty accurate. I'm done doing that. He said nothing. But I am also done financing the time it takes you to avoid the answer. That got his attention. What does that mean? Carol's estate will account for what you owe. I am not forgiving it. I am not demanding $60,000 tomorrow. I want the original agreement preserved and returned to Marcia for review. You already called her. Yes. You said you weren't going to turn this into collections. I'm not. Feels like it? Feelings are allowed. That sounded like Carol. I almost smiled. Your decision about the business is yours. The truth about the debt is not. Nathan was quiet for a long time. Finally, I'll do the meeting. We hired a CPA named Alan Prescott. 62. Semi-retired. He had spent most of his career working with small contractors and manufacturing businesses. I knew him only by reputation. That was intentional. He had never handled my taxes. Never worked with Nathan, never met Carol. Nathan gave him access to the business accounts, tax records, credit cards, supplier statements, customer contracts, Redwood loan, payroll reports, and current receivables. Dana insisted on seeing everything too. For 4 days, nobody called me. I let that happen. On Friday, we met at Alan's office. Nathan and Dana arrived together, not holding hands, not fighting either. Julie came because Dana asked her. Alan had a 12-page summary. No speeches, no judgment, numbers. The business had improved since spring. Revenue was up. Several old jobs had been completed. Sales tax was current. The Redwood loan had only 11 payments left. Those were the good parts. Then, Alan turned the page. Nathan still owed 3 suppliers a combined $34,700. 2 business credit cards totaled $27,400. Equipment and vehicle obligations were $18,900. Carol's documented balance, after the single $500 payment, was $60,620. There were also customer deposits associated with unfinished work. Just over $41,000. Nathan said, "Those jobs are scheduled." Alan nodded. "I know. So why list the deposits as a problem? I'm not saying the deposits themselves are improper, then. I'm saying you do not currently have enough unrestricted cash to complete every contracted job, pay ordinary operating expenses, and service existing debt without receiving additional money from future work." Nobody spoke. Alan continued, "If sales remain strong and nothing goes wrong, you may continue operating." Nathan leaned back. "There." Alan raised one hand. "I wasn't finished." Nathan stopped. "If one major customer delays payment, if you have a material overrun, equipment failure, illness, or normal seasonal slowdown, you are back in the same pattern your mother documented last year." Dana stared at the report. "Using new jobs to finish old ones." "Yes," Nathan said. "A lot of contractors operate on cash flow." Alan nodded. "Absolutely. Then this isn't automatically failure." "No." "Thank you." "It is also not automatically solvency." Nathan looked irritated. Alan did not care. He turned to another page. I found something else. My stomach tightened. Not another secret. I did not want one. Alan pointed to a line. In April, you took a $14,000 deposit for a built-in project on Montgomery Road. Nathan nodded. Materials were ordered. Yes. Approximately $5,200. Yes. The remaining deposit stayed in operating cash. Yes. And during the next 10 days, approximately $6,000 went to old supplier balances and redwood payments. Dana looked at Nathan. He did not deny it. Alan said, Nothing here indicates you intended not to perform the Montgomery job. In fact, your records show it was installed in July. So what's the problem? Nathan asked. The problem is that your mother's January concern did not end when she died. That silenced him. No accusation, just continuity. The exact behavior Carol had been tracking was still happening. Take new money. Use part of it to satisfy old pressure. Work hard enough to eventually catch up. Hope nothing breaks while you run. Nathan looked at the report. How bad? Alan answered carefully. If you want my professional opinion, the company is not hopeless. Nathan's shoulders loosened. Then Alan continued. But its current structure is too leveraged for the margin you're earning, and your personal finances no longer provide a safe cushion, Dana said. Meaning Nathan can keep the business only if something meaningful changes. Such as? More capital. I almost laughed. Alan saw me. I would not recommend family capital without a formal restructuring. Not happening, I said. Nathan looked at me. I held his gaze. Not angry, just clear. Alan continued. Other options are reducing the size of the operation, selling assets, bringing in an equity partner, negotiating with suppliers, or revisiting an acquisition. Nathan looked at the table. Barton. Yes. Did you call them? Alan shook his head. Not without your authorization. Good. Nobody had rescued him. Nobody had secretly arranged the next step. The decision sat exactly where it belonged, with Nathan. Dana asked, Is Barton's old offer still available? No idea. Nathan answered this time. I called them yesterday. I looked at him. He did not look at me. I wanted to know before today. What did they say? Dana asked. They'd talk. About buying? Maybe. And the job? Nathan swallowed. Still possible. That mattered more than he wanted it to. Dana asked, What do you want? He looked at her. For once, he did not answer immediately. I don't know. Dana nodded. Good. He almost smiled. She continued. Then don't tell me you know. That was the closest thing to reconciliation I had seen between them. Alan closed the report. There is one more issue. Nathan looked exhausted. What? The debt to Carol. Everyone looked at me. I hated that. I said, It exists. Nathan nodded. I know. I'm not forgiving it. His jaw tightened. I know. I'm also not asking you to liquidate the shop next week to pay me. He looked surprised. Dana did too. What are you asking? Nathan said. That you hand the originals to Marcia. Fine. That the debt gets recorded correctly. Fine. And that if the business is sold, restructured, or closed, Carol's money does not become the last obligation everyone conveniently forgets. Nathan looked down. Then he said, Okay, no fight, no bargain. That was how I knew something had changed. The following Monday, Nathan gave Marcia the original repayment agreement. He also gave her Carol's original records from Unit 317, all of them. Then he drove to Barton Architectural Woodworks, alone. I did not go. Dana did not go. Julie did not call ahead. Nobody negotiated for him. He came to my house that evening. The brass key to Unit 317 was still on my kitchen table. He noticed it. Barton made an offer. I waited. Not as good as January. How much? 58 cash for assets. They take 3 current contracts if customers agree. They'll assume the shop lease. And you? Production manager. Salary? 80U8. Benefits? Yes. He sat across from me. They want an answer Friday. What are you going to do? Nathan looked at the key, then at me. I'm going to take it. I did not congratulate him. I did not tell him he was finally being sensible. I asked one question. Why? His eyes filled. Because I'm tired of needing the next job to fix the last one. That was his answer. Not Carol's, not mine, his. Friday afternoon, Nathan signed. The company carrying our family name did not disappear that day. It began winding down. Customers were notified. Transferred contracts required consent. Suppliers received payment schedules. His 2 remaining employees were offered interviews at Barton. The equipment sale would not make everyone whole immediately. It would make the situation honest enough to finish. Before closing Unit 317, Nathan called me. "You want your things?" I met him there. The new lock opened with his key. Inside, Carol's gray cabinet stood empty, except for the blue archival box and the old photo album. Nathan carried the album. I carried the box. At the door, he stopped. "I'm sorry." "For which part?" He looked at the blue box. "That one first. 8 months, 1 letter, a promise to his mother." I could have made him say more. I did not. "I know why you kept it." "That doesn't make it okay." "No." He waited. "Will it ever be?" I looked at him. "I don't know." That was not cruelty. It was the first answer I had given my son in years without trying to improve it. He nodded. Then he rolled the door down on Unit 317. The storage key Carol had carried until 9 days before she died was no longer evidence of a mystery. It had done its job. The last thing left was what our family would do once there was nothing locked away to discover anymore. The last thing left was what our family would do once there was nothing locked away to discover anymore. That turned out to be harder than opening the unit. Nathan started at Barton 3 weeks later. He went from having his name on the side of a truck to wearing a company polo with somebody else's name stitched over the pocket. The first Monday, he sent me a photograph from the parking lot. No message, just the building behind him and a paper coffee cup in his hand. I looked at it for a long time before replying. "Hope the first day goes well." Nothing about salary. Nothing about benefits. Nothing about whether he had made the right decision. He answered, "Thanks, Dad." That was all. For us, that counted as progress. Mercer Custom Cabinetry took almost 4 months to wind down completely. Barton accepted 3 customer contracts after the homeowners agreed to the transfer. 2 other jobs Nathan finished himself on weekends with 1 former employee. The Parker bathroom vanity that had sat in Unit 317 for more than a year finally went into the house it had been built for. Nathan refunded the remaining unused portion of the original deposit. He told me afterward. I did not ask to see the canceled check. That was also progress. The equipment sale covered the Redwood balance, several supplier accounts, and part of the business credit cards. It did not erase every debt. There was no cinematic moment where one signature cleaned the slate. Nathan and Dana still had nearly $20,000 of business-related credit card debt when the dust settled. They sold his work truck because Barton provided one for site visits. They canceled a vacation. Nathan took a second installation job twice a month for extra money. Consequences usually look less dramatic than people expect. They look like Saturday work. A smaller Christmas. A car kept 2 years longer. Dana knowing every account balance because she insisted on seeing them. That last part was not optional. I learned that when she came to my house alone in November. She brought Carol's old recipe tin. I found this behind some boxes in our pantry. I opened it. Index cards, meatloaf, peach cobbler, potato salad with enough mayonnaise to make a cardiologist resign. Carol's handwriting covered all of them. Dana sat at the kitchen table. "I'm not leaving, Nathan." I had not asked. "I didn't think you were." I considered it. I nodded. He lied to me for almost a year. Yes. About money? Yes. About Sophie? Yes. And he used Carol to make me think staying with the business was something she wanted. I waited. That's the part I'm having trouble with. I understand. She looked at me. Do you? Yes. How? Because he used her silence on me too. Dana looked down at the recipe tin. I keep thinking about what she would say. That can become dangerous. She looked up. What? I spent months doing the same thing after she died. What would Carol want? Yes. And? I finally realized Carol left enough actual words that I don't need to invent new ones for her. Dana smiled sadly. That sounds like something she'd say. Probably. Which means we should immediately distrust it. She laughed. It was the first time I had heard her laugh since the meeting at their kitchen island. She told me Nathan had agreed to marital counseling, also financial counseling. Dana had access to every account. No new loan above $5,000 without both of them discussing it. No touching Sophie's money. That condition sounded obvious. Sometimes the obvious rules are the ones a family learns only after somebody violates them. Sophie's custodial account remained intact at a little over $23,000 by spring. Carol's replacement money had restored what Nathan took before Sophie ever knew it was missing. Nathan eventually told her exactly what he had done. Dana insisted. So did I. Sophie did not forgive him immediately. She was 16. 16-year-olds are often better than adults at understanding that love and anger can occupy the same room. For several weeks, she barely spoke to him unless necessary. Then one Saturday, she asked him to help build shelves for her bedroom. Nathan came to my garage to borrow a level. I handed it to him. You own 7 levels. Owned. Barton doesn't let you take company tools home? No. I gave him mine. He turned to leave, then stopped. She asked me to help. I heard. I thought she hated me. She's your daughter. That didn't answer me. No. He smiled slightly. I'm learning where you got that. He took the level. By summer, Sophie had decided on the University of Cincinnati instead of going out of state. Not because of the missing money. At least that was what she told us. She liked the program. She liked being close to home. She liked the idea of graduating without enormous loans. Carol would have approved of the last part loudly enough to embarrass her. I contributed something towards Sophie's education. Not secretly, not as a rescue. I sat with Nathan and Dana first. I told them the amount. I told Sophie the amount too. No one had to guess what somebody else had promised. The most uncomfortable part came from Carol's estate. Marcia filed the necessary papers to account for the omitted receivable. There was paperwork. There were signatures. There were fees. Nothing dramatic. When it was finished, the unpaid obligation effectively came to me under Carol's estate plan. Nathan owed $60,624 to his father. Again. I hated the symmetry. Nathan hated it more. We met at my house with the original agreement between us. He said, I can do $500 a month. That's what your mother wrote. I know. You could probably do more after the other debt is gone. I could. I looked at the paper. There were several ways I could have handled it. Demand more. Forgive everything. Split the difference. Make a grand gesture. Carol had already made the grand gesture. More than $61,000 of them. The point was not to prove I could be more generous. The point was to stop making money to do emotional work it was bad at. 500, I said. Nathan looked surprised. That's it. For now. For how long? Until something changes enough that we discuss it. You're not charging interest? Your mother didn't. He nodded. Then he said, I want one change. What? Automatic payment. I almost laughed. You're asking me to make the loan more formal? I'm asking not to have a conversation with you every month about whether I remembered. That made sense. We set it up. $500 moved from Nathan's account on the 5th of each month. No reminder. No comment from me, no gold star when it arrived. The first payment notification came while I was making coffee. I looked at it, then deleted the email. The debt existed. It did not need to become our relationship. By the following February, 1 year after Carol died, Nathan had paid $6,000 toward it. Not enough to transform the balance, enough to establish a pattern. More important, he had not borrowed new money. Dana told me that, not him. She also told me he hated his first 3 months at Barton, then started liking parts of the job. He came home at 5:30 more often. He had health insurance that did not make him angry every time he opened the premium notice. Someone else worried about payroll. If a customer paid late, the company did not become Nathan's personal emergency. One evening he came over to help me replace a cracked board on the deck. We worked for an hour before he said, Mom was right. I kept drilling. Dangerous sentence. About the business, I stopped. She said closing it wouldn't make me less of myself. I waited. I thought she was saying the business didn't matter. Maybe she was saying it didn't matter more than everything else. Nathan nodded. Then he looked at the board we were replacing. I'm sorry she spent so much of the end worrying about me. That was the apology I had been waiting for without knowing it. Not sorry he got caught. Not sorry I found the letter. Not even sorry about the money. Sorry for what his fear cost his mother. I sat on the deck step. She chose some of that. I know. She could have told me. I know. I'm still mad at her for not doing it. Nathan looked surprised. You are? Yes.